Good afternoon, everybody, and you are very welcome to Policy and Practices webinar of February 2024. It's lovely to have you join us today. Thank you very much for taking the time. Moved to a new afternoon slot just for February, so great to see so many people joining us. Thank you. Today, I'm delighted to be introducing you to a fantastic case study about the East Riding of Yorkshire Council, and we're talking about how they have had some amazing success with their data, how they grew the income of nearly 16,000 households by £13 million. How did they do that? We will come on to that. In the interim, let me just take you through the housekeeping. If you're familiar with our webinars, you will know that I'm going to direct you to the panel on the right-hand side, please, and ask you to raise your digital hand by way of an audio check to let me know, thank you, that you can hear me. That's perfect. In that same panel, you'll see where you can ask questions throughout the webinar, and I encourage you to do that as our speakers go through their content, and we will have plenty of time at the end to get to your questions. We'll have a poll and we'll have a short survey at the end, and I've said download, but I'll send that on after the webinar. We aim to have you on your way, not by 11:45, but by 3:15. So just an hour and 15 minutes for the session this afternoon. As always, the slides and the recording will follow automatically, so no need to take copious notes if you don't want to. But also, if you are on Twitter or X, do please give us a follow. We are at policy_practice. We will follow you back. Lovely. Thank you very much, everybody. So before I get into the main content and hand you over to our speakers, just like to say a little bit for those of you who are new about policy and practice. So we're an organisation that believes in the power of data and technology to change lives. And like yourselves, we're very much wedded about public policy and how the system can work better. So what do we do? How do we do this? So we are a team of professionals who have an extensive knowledge of the welfare system. We have got some great policy experts working within our organisation, I'm delighted to say. Like you, we're passionate about making social policy work better. And we have built, using that policy knowledge, we've built a fantastic, very comprehensive policy rules engine that's helped us to create an analytics product that's used by well over 100 local authorities across the country, who use their data to identify vulnerable households, target support and track change. And indeed, that's what we're going to be focusing on today, how one amazing council did just that. You may already know us as well by our award-winning benefit calculator, one of 3 that's listed on gov.uk, so recommended by government, and it engages around about 10,000 people every day. And we're so pleased it's put around about over £700 million into people's pockets in a year over the last year or so. But we'll come on to see that that's a drop in the ocean, if you like. There's lots more that we should be doing and indeed can do. So yeah, the calculator helps people to take steps to increase their income, lower their costs and build their financial resilience as appropriate. So that's just a little bit about us, and thank you very much for the hand raising. But I suppose the main point of the session today, here is the agenda. I'm really pleased to be able to talk about a fantastic case study. My colleague, Rachael Walker, is going to be kickstarting the session, and she's going to take us a look at the national and local context for unclaimed benefits and support, with some brand new updated figures and work that we've been doing. Then on to the star of the show, which is talking about how one local authority, as I say, has achieved a return on investment of an amazing £416 for each £1 spent in tackling their unclaimed support gap in their area. And that's East Riding of Yorkshire. I'll introduce you very shortly. And then my colleague Sam Fathers will be just taking a very quick look at the solution. How did East Riding of Yorkshire do all of that? And he'll just take you very quickly through a couple of slides on the LIFT platform and how it's being used. As I mentioned, plenty of time for Q&As, and also we'll be covering some next steps as well. So hopefully you're in the right place. Hopefully this is what you're expecting to see. Yeah, so let's move on. Let's kick off. So if I could ask all of our speakers to put their mics on and their cameras on, and then you will be able to see the faces to the names. Brilliant. So my name is Janet Harkin. I head up the marketing function at Policy and Practice. I'm delighted to be here again. I'd like to introduce you to my colleague, Rachael Walker.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Rachael Walker, Policy and Research Director at Policy and Practice.
Lovely, thanks, Rachael. And as I say, delighted, the star of the show, Paul Furness from East Riding of Yorkshire. Paul, do you want to say hello quickly?
Hi, I'm Paul Furness and I'm from the East Riding of Yorkshire Council.
And then my colleague Sam Fathers from Policy and Practice. But first of all, let me hand over to my colleague Rachael, who's going to take us through the first part of the presentation. Thanks, Rachael, over to you.
My pleasure. Good afternoon, everybody. The national context in terms of unclaimed benefits and support is something that Policy and Practice has been driving for the last 12 months in particular, since we published our very popular and widely broadcast report around 19 billion a year in unclaimed benefits and support from the national welfare system. Now, the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, one of our partners, has recently produced a report to say that 14 million people in the United Kingdom, which is 22% of our population, are living in poverty. The cost of living crisis, the inflation, the housing crisis, you name it, we all know the plural of crisis now. And in terms of nationally, we are approaching a general election year. And it's anybody's guess as to this point next week or in a week or so's time when we have the budget as to what might be announced. However, we still know at the moment that 19% of adults living in households with lower incomes are behind on priority bills. 23% have no savings, and this is a recent report from the Health Foundation. These two stats, so 14 million people living in poverty and 19% of adults behind with their priority bills, so housing, utilities, council tax, they're quite bleak statistics, and we don't sugarcoat what we're looking at when we plug in sort of unclaimed benefits and the support that we can help generate through the products that we have at Policy and Practice. However, it's worth still talking about because 19 billion is unclaimed every year. Now, this is in the form of both universal credit, housing benefits, it could be pension credit. We've got 5.2 billion alone in unclaimed attendance allowance. The national context in terms of, we know the Household Support Fund is ending at the end of March, as we currently know. Now, will this be renewed in the budget next week? We don't know yet. But what we do know is that local government is still on the forefront of the cost of living crisis, delivering locally for your communities. And as East Riding of Yorkshire are about to demonstrate, you can do this brilliantly in terms of bringing money into your community and putting it into the pockets of these people who are living in poverty and who are behind on their priority bills. I've mentioned here on the national context around council tax. Now, Paul's going to tell us in a little while about how they've reduced council tax arrears at East Riding of Yorkshire. But it's worth mentioning, because I know a lot of our attendees here will be local authority colleagues, that council tax debt increased by £510 million in the last reportable year. Council tax debt is outstripping the council tax that we are raising nationally, and we know that this is a huge burden for low-income families. We know that council tax support has changed that, but we also know that it's absolutely vital to local government funding. The local government funding settlement that we've had for this year is 5 years out of the last 8, we have seen a single year local government financial settlement. Our ability in local government to plan financially, to support our low income residents and to run our statutory services and all the other wonderful things that we do in local government is being tested, to say the least. So it's more important than ever when we're looking at stretch budgets, when we're looking at 1 year funding settlements, when we're all really quite concerned about the end of the Household Support Fund and other cost of living support at the end of this financial year, that we continue to we continue to beat this drum around unclaimed benefits. Now, East Riding of Yorkshire are the most wonderful example of a small team being able to deliver an absolutely enormous impact. Moving on to the local context, As I've said, my definition of local is pretty broad this afternoon. In East Riding of Yorkshire, we estimate, based on our quite unique methodology that has been published in the last 12 months, that £63 million a year is unclaimed in one authority. To put that into some more context, we estimate around 970 million a year is unclaimed in Yorkshire, which is just huge. I mean, Yorkshire's huge, but also this number is huge. And this isn't the kind of relative numbers that we want to see for large authorities. And we've recently produced a report for the North East Child Poverty Commission and Carbon Homes, where we've narrowed our national methodology down to a region and found an astonishing 1.3 billion a year is unclaimed in the North East. Now, they're northern neighbours to East Riding of Yorkshire. I'm personally from the North West, so I'm a little over to the side of East Riding of Yorkshire. But as a northerner, as somebody who lives in our country and in general, this is something that we can't accept. And so here at Policy and Practice, our mission is to do something about it. The way we go about that, as Paul's about to demonstrate, and as my colleague Sam will show you later, is to target using data proactively to ensure that people are claiming the benefits that they are entitled to. These aren't wide campaigns where we are speculative, they are narrowed. We're using data in a very focused way, and we're getting great results as you're about to see. Now, with all of this unclaimed benefits, and this isn't just a northern issue, clearly, the rest of the 19 billion is distributed fairly unevenly, I would have to say, around the rest of the country. But it remains, regardless of 19 billion, imagine if we had 19 billion pounds in local government, our next year's settlement was 19 billion pounds higher, what we could do with that money. Well, we can put that money into the pockets of your residents. That's the national and local context in a very, very brief overview. However, we're really happy to take questions as part of this webinar, and I'm really excited to hear what Paul's got to show you about East Riding of Yorkshire.
Brilliant, lovely. Thank you, Rachel. And before we hand over to Paul, I want to just serve our poll, if that's okay. And on this poll, hopefully coming up on your screen very shortly, you should see the question that we are asking you. So you might not be a local authority, but this applies to every organisation, we hope. So in your organisation, please tell us what barriers to running benefit or support take-up campaigns do you think that you've got in your own organisation? And like I say, as I say with all of our polls, whenever we do this at Policy and Practice, there may be a combination of reasons here, but please just do choose the one that is most prevalent or highest on your list. So the answers that we've given you are, is the availability of data and or the data quality the biggest barrier for doing campaign take-up campaigns in your organisation? Is it that you've got a risk-averse culture around data sharing, so there's some sort of data governance challenges for you, or actually it's a cultural piece? Is it about lack of resources, and by that I mean people, time and money? Is it about a lack of skills in your organisation, or do you feel that actually you don't have any barriers, or indeed you don't know? So I would love to hear everybody's thoughts on that, and then I can see lots of people are still voting. So when I close this poll, I'll put the answers up on screen, and I will then ask Paul Furness, by way of introduction, to comment on the results. So it's lovely and clear. Thank you very much. So let me close this poll and share the results. Hopefully you should see that on your screen now. So, wow, very, very clear. 62% of you think the reason that you're not doing benefit or support take-up campaigns in your organisation is lack of resource, people, time and money. Not at all followed closely, but data availability and or data quality is an issue for 18%. In joint third, a risk-averse culture around data sharing, and you don't know or you don't have barriers, and then finally lack of skills in the organisation. So really interesting results. Paul, what do you make of those responses, would you say? Paul, if you're there, if I could get your response, Paul. Just lovely. Paul,
Yeah.
brilliant.
Hi. Yeah, hi. We've got there. We found that we used to wait for people to contact us and reach out and do massive mail merges. But what we've been able to do with the Lift dashboard is we've kind of like been able to run bulk campaigns with our comms people. And we've recently done one with regards to the warm homes discount, where because we've got email data on our systems, which is cross-matched with the reports we get out of Lift, we've been able to send emails out to sort of like 8,000 residents to let them know about availability of benefit entitlements that they're not currently receiving, and that's been the beauty of Lift. Really, we've been able to run numerous campaigns using small teams, and using the data.
What's the size of the team? I know you're going to come on to this, so don't steal your own thunder. But
what we've got is we've got different teams, because some of the campaigns have focused on some of our debt recovery teams. Some of the work is focused on our Your Money team that are there to maximise income and benefits. Some of it, where it's unclaimed benefit, would fall upon our benefits assessment teams, and some of it falls with our business support teams. So it's kind of like being a real joint effort involving some key personnel, but working very closely with our digital comms team in order to use things like gov.uk to send out bulk emails. So a lot of the proactive work in terms of raising awareness of benefit entitlements, it's been done at very low cost, and done by people that do that for a living, with regards to a lot of the communications that we send out to our customers.
Brilliant. So making it part of business as usual and including lots of other teams. That sounds really, really interesting. Paul, let's close this poll and hand over properly to yourself to go through the rest of your presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, Paul, over to you. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Paul Furness, and I'm the Debt Management Operations Manager for the East Riding of Yorkshire Council. I manage teams involved in the recovery of council tax, council housing rent, housing benefit overpayments, corporately billed invoices, and our Your Money team, who work to maximise income and benefits for residents, as well as looking to help with housing and council tax costs and negotiate sustainable repayment arrangements with our customers. And I've worked in the revenues and benefits field for around 15 years. Thank you. Next slide. So what I hope to cover today is demographics of the East Riding, arrears and poverty. I work within the financial inclusion strategy for the council, the Lift platform, give you some examples of campaigns, talk about the return on investment, income secured for residents, and the arrears reduced, and what the impact has really been on us going live with Lift and running our campaigns. So, thank you. Next slide. So just a bit of background for you. East Riding of Yorkshire is a unitary authority which came into existence in 1996. Covers a huge geographical area, 931 square miles. It's mainly rural and coastal, with a population of around 338,000 people. And the area borders the city of Hull and covers a large area of the Humber estuary. So numbers-wise, in the East Riding, we have 164,000 council tax dwellings, 11,300 council housing properties, and just over 12,000 business rated properties. So in terms of the collectible debit, we're looking at 266.5 million in council tax, and business rates 107 million pound. The East Riding is genuinely an affluent area, and it's ranked amongst the least socially deprived area in England. But there are real pockets of deprivation in some of our coastal areas, Bridlington, southeast Holderness, in the inland port of Goole, and in parts of town centres of Beverley and Driffield. We've got some real issues with the rurality of the East Riding in terms of isolation for services, particularly in relation to our North Sea facing coast. Increasingly, the population of the East Riding is getting older due to migration by retired people, particularly to coastal resorts. And in terms of housing, the relative affordability of the area means a high proportion of households are owner occupied. So next slide, please. Okay. So just to give an overview, like other local authorities, we've changed our approach from just being a traditional revenues and benefits department to meet the challenges our residents face and our own difficulties with increased costs and budget pressures. We're moving towards how we provide a one conversation approach to helping residents and moving away from just collecting debt to how we can help residents out of debt. And LIFT has been an essential part of this. With LIFT, we can achieve a lot without it being resource heavy and signpost residents to self-help. And our focus has been about how we can maximise income for households, working within the Council's financial inclusion strategy with other partners too, to boost financial capability and resilience, tackle food and fuel poverty, and improve digital access and education. And in a 2-year period, we've delivered over 20 benefit take-up campaigns using Policy and Practice's low income family tracker platform. And this has boosted our residents' annual income by 12.9 million and reduced arrears by £650,000 with a focus on building the income for those households. And our focus has been very much on a continual basis, working with PIP. We meet with them on a regular basis. We use each other as a sounding board for campaigns that we want to promote. And resource-wise, I think I've just mentioned this. We use our business support team to do some of our IT work. Our Your Money team for advice and support for residents. Our discretionary team for work with sort of like Section 13A reductions for council tax and discretionary housing payments for housing costs. We work closely with our comms team to deliver bulk emails to residents. So with small teams, we've achieved a lot. LIFT has helped us deliver bulk campaigns using data, which has helped with a massive beneficial impacts on the financial health and well-being of our residents in a cost-effective way by data matching data sets from LIFT and our own systems. And as I talked earlier, we've recently sent out Warm Homes discount to bulk email to around 8,000 residents, and sent 1,200 emails to tenants in rent arrears, signposting them to the help that's available. So next slide, please. So in late 2020, the council had arrears worth over £6.4 million for residents receiving council tax support. And this included over £3.2 million in council tax support and over £2 million in council tax arrears, over £960,000 in housing benefit overpayments, and over £252,000 in rent arrears. And at the same time, 42% of our residents were living below the poverty line. The campaigns that we've run have led to arrears being reduced across the board by over £650,000, £50,000 reduction in rent arrears, £481,000 in council tax support scheme arrears, and £121,000 in reduction in housing benefit overpayments. Next slide, please. Okay. So we use the LIFT platform to identify households in need of support, and by offering proactive support, we enhance residents' financial resilience and prevent debt. This boosts household income and reduces long-term costs for the council. We've used LIFT for specific awareness campaigns and also to target spending of government grant funding. And LIFT has helped us identify residents who are eligible for this financial support so that we've been able to administer grant payments such as the Household Support Fund in an effective and efficient way using data, which has saved us much valued staffing capacity and costs. Campaign-wise, it's continuous, it's consistent. LIFT means we can make a big impact using limited resources for maximum gain. And what it's also helped do is it's helped inform our conversations with residents, because we've helped them in terms of increasing income into the household. It's a good start to then start talking about how we can help reduce their council tax arrears and help with that difficult conversation as a creditor, as well as an organisation that's looking to help them. So in terms of campaigns, next slide. Okay. The council's revenues and benefits team have used LIFT to identify households missing out on support, multiple campaigns to inform families of their benefits entitlement and encourage take-up, households contacted through various means, and offered a full benefit check and debt advice through our Your Money team. LIFT has helped us run campaigns on free school meals, and we have a system of automatic enrolment and opt-out function which is built into that process. LIFT is able to segment customers based on data on household income, expenditure and arrears, and it determines whether residents are coping, struggling or in crisis. And this has helped us directly target these customers on specific campaigns such as rent and council tax arrears, and target those residents we feel are at greatest risk from illegal money lending activity. We've recently held workshops across East Riding locations with regard to loan shark awareness, and we used LIFT to invite residents who we felt may be at greatest risk of from illegal money lending activity to a film in one of our cinemas, which was a really successful event. We aim to run a new campaign on a monthly basis, and it's just about consistently and continuously contacting our residents to ensure that they're receiving everything they're entitled to. Next slide, please. Okay. With regard to our Your Money team, we're there to maximise income and benefits. These are the type of campaigns that they've worked on. Pension credit. We used the hook of free TV licences for over 75s, but this allowed our staff to then go deeper and do a full welfare and benefit check and discuss any arrears owed to the council. We've worked on specific campaigns to help residents affected by the benefit cap and the reduction in the temporary increase in universal credit, and to help with costs and look at arrears owed to the council. We've looked at residents in receipt of universal credit who were not on council tax support, and we've looked at specific debt targeting to help private rented tenants with high council tax arrears and council tenants with rent and council tax arrears. Our Your Money team monitor the outcome for these residents 3 months after their contact to determine the additional income generated for the household and the amounts recovered for the council. One of the issues all councils have is our relationship with our residents. We want to help them out of debt, not just collect the debt from them, but we are a creditor. And LIFT helps us as income maximisation for residents allows that better conversation about arrears owed to the council. Next slide, please. Just to go a bit deeper with regards to pension credit campaign, between February 2021 and July 2023, the council secured nearly £3 million for 623 households from pension credit take-up campaigns. We repeated this campaign on 6 occasions, as it's one we repeat due to its success. The figures that we've included in the slide here show the yearly pension credit payments, cost of living payments, backdated pension credit and savings from free TV licences. We've also targeted carer households as well to boost their income and reduce adult social care costs to the council. Next slide, please. Yeah. We've also really focused on how we can reduce our residents' expenditure by working with utility companies to highlight discounted schemes for eligible residents. Yorkshire Water have, like other water companies, a discounted tariff for residents on income-based benefits who are on a water meter, who use more water because they have 3 or more children, or if the resident uses additional water due to health condition disability. Due to our contact, around 2,300 households took up £418,000 in support, with an estimated 30% take-up amongst the near 8,000 eligible families targeted by the East Ridings campaign. This has significantly reduced the number of East Riding residents who are paying more for water than they should be, and we aim to reduce this even further. The average gain was £180 per year per household. We used the campaign by emailing potentially eligible households where we had an email address using free Gov delivery and using social media posts to promote take-up. We're currently at an advanced stage with a data share agreement with Yorkshire Water so that we identify residents who we feel are eligible for water share, and as part of a data share, we send the data to Yorkshire Water for them to check and apply the lower tariff without the need for an application. We feel that that's a barrier to a number of residents paying higher fees for water meters than they should do due to their entitlement. Lift enables us to identify these residents from our dashboard and to directly target these residents to encourage take-up. So we're hoping to go live very shortly with a data share, which will mean our residents are automatically put onto it. Next slide, please. Discretionary housing payments are again, it's another campaign that we look to use on a frequent basis, and the council proactively target discretionary housing payments, resulting in an average gain of over £340 per household. We contacted around 140 tenants with arrears and no savings in inviting them to apply for DHPs, and this resulted in an additional £47,500 income for the group and a reduction in arrears by £7,000. None of these households have moved into temporary accommodation since the start of the campaign. It's something that we aim to repeat on a very regular basis with regard to discretionary housing payments, and with regard to our tenant arrears, you know, we want to help our tenants as much as possible, as well as privately rented tenants. So next slide, please. Okay. I think this has been described as a bit of a balance sheet, really, because what we've done is our lift campaigns have secured £12.9 million for residents of the East Riding of Yorkshire. This included £3.4 million per year from lift campaigns and an extra £9.5 million from 15 other campaigns. And these campaigns have helped families secure discounts and grants for homes. But what it's also done is it's also significantly reduced arrears owed with rent arrears, council tax support scheme arrears and housing benefit overpayments. It's also helped us provide for warm homes discount, household support grant and emergency assistance claims as well. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. In terms of return of investment, we've had a return of £416 for each pound spent by the East Riding of Yorkshire Council. We've delivered nearly £13 million in additional income to 15,700 residents, and for our residents that are struggling, it's almost life-changing some of the finance that we've been able to help them receive. And with pension credit, over £4,800 gain per household on average. We're looking at how we use Lift. We use Lift to give us digital heat maps, which help with campaigns, use of resources, management reports, and liaison with local VCSE groups. We use that data intelligence to inform our conversations with those groups. We're also looking at how we work with other areas of the council, such as housing, and we're running campaigns on homelessness prevention and providing financial support for homeowners using Lift to identify homes with low energy performance certificate ratings and ensuring tenancy sustainment for new tenants. So in summary, we're a small team and Lift has helped us have a large beneficial impact on residents. It's helped us deliver on our financial inclusion strategy, delivered on our priority to protect the vulnerable in the East Riding, helped increase the financial resilience of residents, with targeted support to people in arrears and encouraged the take-up of unclaimed benefits and other support. We aim to hold some further events in the community in the next couple of months, utilising the Lift data, inviting voluntary sector groups, housing, learning and development and digital skills office with residents and with community groups taking the data from Lift in order to be able to send invites out to residents. Thank you.
Paul, that was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. I can't tell you the number of questions we've got from people who are really interested to hear a little bit more about the work you've been doing. But before we get to that, let me hand over to my colleague Sam, who's going to just take us through just a couple of slides, a little bit more about the Lift platform and what it can do for local authorities. Sam, over to you.
Thanks, Janet. You can move straight onto the first slide. Hi everyone, thank you for your time this afternoon, and then thank you to Paul discussing EROI and how you've used the Lift tracker over the last sort of 2 years to get £13 million back into residents' pockets using Lift campaigns is absolutely amazing. And just sort of speak on behalf of everyone up here, that's what gets us pumped every day, that's what gets us out of bed. So thank you for sharing what you've been doing. But yeah, what is Lift? Lift is the low-income family tracker. It's a cloud-based and really visually powerful system, and it allows local authorities to combine different data sets from across the local authority, combine them with our multi-award-winning policy engine, and that enables smarter, much more powerful insights, both at a council and ward-wide level, but also all the way down to a household level. You to see the impact of multiple policy changes on your low-income households, both now and looking forward, in order to move to a much more proactive and preventative model, which is not only more efficient for your teams, but it's also much better for residents and helps avoid costly and highly emotional crisis moments. Lift helps identify benefits that residents are eligible for and not receiving. It allows highly powerful debt segmentation as well to better manage debts in a much more holistic way, as has been done in East Riding of Yorkshire, and helps keep residents in their homes longer and in much more sustainable tenancy. It also helps local authorities to better understand the current and future needs of services, and to be able to do so with ever-decreasing budgets and smaller teams. And at a time when there are big questions about the future of local discretionary costs, the need for Lift and getting those long-term solutions and using the DWP's money rather than yours, it's never been more important to be done at a local authority level. Next slide, please, Janet. So how do Lift and our partners do this? There are over 100 different layable filters within Lift, which you can see here on the right-hand side. These can easily segment your low-income cohort into different target groups. So no matter the size of the team that you've got working on a campaign, you can filter it down to an appropriate level and prioritise groups as per what your resource is. It allows you to proactively identify those most at risk or those who are missing out on different benefits, and it allows you to drill down to a household level to identify those who could do with that support from you and exactly what support they're eligible for. Next slide, please. So in the scenario here on the screen, with less than 10 clicks and about 2 minutes, we've managed to filter it down the low-income cohort to those households who are most at risk of homelessness, and where there would be significant costs to the in temporary accommodations to the local authority were those households to move into TA. We've looked at those households who are on the breadline or below, both now and also looking forward. So looking at those policy changes that are coming in April, looking at the tax changes that are coming, the changes to the benefit system, changes to the energy price cap, etc. We've then targeted those who are in private rental, where there is less duty of care from landlords, and sort of no duty of care to families, etc. So we know those landlords are quicker to evict due to debt, and we've then looked at those who've already got council tax debts, so debts with you, as this could easily point to them having rent arrears as well. We've then looked at a slider to filter down further. So we're looking at those larger families, 3 or more children. We'd be having to look for a very large home. We know they can be very difficult to find for temporary accommodation. And when you do find them, again, the costs can be astronomical to the local authority. And through doing those 4 quick filters, we've taken over 30,000 homes in the first slide down to 42 high priority homes for outreach now. Next slide. And this allows you to proactively target those households, and not just with long-term financial solutions, but also with non-financial support and where relevant, interventions such as DHP and CTS support. And because we track those interventions within LIFT as well, you're able to really easily see those households who might not be aware of those different schemes, who might be in trouble for the first time coming out of COVID and now hit by the cost of living crisis. So don't know what there is that's available with the local authority and what they're eligible for. We know that awareness is the single biggest reason why people are not claiming benefits, and that's closely followed by stigma. And this allows for both of those things to be removed or minimised. And by targeting support in this way, we know that it has the highest level of effectiveness and the highest level of uptake by households. Next slide, please, Janet. So just wanting to compare very quickly the success of centralised campaigns, so things done by DWP, to those local campaigns that have been done by local authorities, such as East Riding of Yorkshire, and probably most of the people on this call are doing some sort of local campaign already at the moment. We know that local authority campaigns have much higher uptake than ones from DWP. Looking at some of the campaigns that we have run with LIFT, on average, our take-up is over double that is achieved with DWP campaigns, and some of the campaigns that have been run, I think it was one in Bracknell Forest recently, has had uptake of over 60% as well, and that's actually becoming more and more the norm. Next slide, please. And how do we know this? Well, LIFT also allows us to track that change, and because we're bringing your data sets on a regular basis every single month, that allows you to run regular performance checks on those campaigns that you have run. You can see the impact that's happened, again, all the way down to that household level on those individual households that you've been targeting with support. And we can see things such as benefit take-up, whether people's income has increased, their debt has decreased, they've moved back into employment, and whether they've had to move into TA or out of TA. And this allows you to easily evaluate your campaign performance.
Great.
Yes, sorry,
Yeah.
thank you, Janet.
Lovely, thank you very much, Sam. And I would just like to finish off this session and before we move on to our Q&As, just by bringing everything all together here, just to sort of say, you know, closing the unclaimed support gap that we've been hearing about can be done in your area. Look at the success East Riding has achieved so far. Rachael has talked to us about how the cost of living crisis is not going away anytime soon, and local authorities and frontline organisations, we know, play an absolutely crucial role in helping people, an increasingly difficult role too, with limited resources, and we've heard from Rachael there. Big fingers crossed for next week's budget, but yeah, the pockets are tight. £19 billion of benefits and support is unclaimed across the UK every single year, and if we put this money into residents' pockets, we can help councils to recover arrears and strengthen their financial position too. So it's a good thing to do. East Riding of Yorkshire, Paul talked to us about how the organisation has generated £13 million of income for residents and recovered arrears worth £650,000 for the council, and they've done that using our LIFT platform, which we're absolutely delighted to have played a small part in their success. The return on investment really does speak for itself. Paul mentioned that £416 returned for every £1 spent. You just can't really argue with that number. Their stunning success, as it says on this slide, it really is true, and it can be replicated elsewhere. And we would love to talk to other organisations about how this can be done. Brilliant. Thank you so much to all of our speakers. We have loads of Q&A, so I would love, if possible, for us all to turn our cameras and mics on, and let's get to it, because there's lots to be looking at. Brilliant. Okay, so Paul, if I could come to you, I've got some quite kind of easy, quick questions, if I may. Person has asked if you could just repeat, what is the name of the programme that you use for your bulk email campaigns?
It's our digital comms team use something called Gov Delivery as a way of sending bulk emails out, which I believe is a free service as well. So it's a highly effective way of dealing with it without massively inflated postage costs as well, and printing costs as well. So it delivers on environmentally friendly benefits as well. So yeah.
Brilliant, lovely, thank you. And I know it's something that is used by other local authorities. Rachel's nodding here. In all your 15 years in local government, Rachel, you'd be familiar with that. Yeah, definitely. And Paul, just sticking with you, I love the example that you talked about where you were talking to us about inviting people who were at risk of loan sharks and inviting them to the film showing. One person has asked, how did you identify those who are most vulnerable to loan sharks?
Well, what we did is we were holding an event in one of our towns that's got high levels of deprivation. So what we looked at is indicators with regard to people who were struggling. Basically, lift segmentation, that people had high levels of council tax and rent arrears, particularly single people and households with families where the income and expenditure was something that would cause concern, and where we had been aware that there had been loan shark activity in the past. We've worked quite closely with voluntary community sector groups in that area, and we had regular dialogue with the England illegal money lending team as well, who were absolutely fantastic in terms of working with us. We also did some close work with our with the credit union in the East Riding as well, and we've kind of like used incentivised campaigns where they match fund people that take out savings with the credit union with the proceeds from that have been recovered from illegal money lending activity. So it's quite a nice way of actually incentivising savings and good borrowing, really. So yeah.
Brilliant, lovely, thank you. I'm sure a lot of what you've talked about there is going to chime with quite a few people on the call, so thanks Paul. Coming thick and fast at you, here's another one. Another person here is asking, and it's about the different campaigns. So can you tell us how you prioritise the different campaign themes? And then secondly, what are the key success factors in terms of getting the different teams on board?
That's quite a good question. Well, what we do is we meet with PIP on a regular basis, and you know, we're talking to them. They're sharing information as to sort of like other local authorities that they've worked with, and where they've achieved real success. So we use that as a bit of a sounding board, and also sort of like run our ideas by them in terms of who we should help. It's the pension credit campaign is the one where we really feel that it's been a benefit, because it enabled people to claim the free TV licenses for over 75s, but also by enabling them to receive pension credit, they got the cost of living payments as well. That was a particular success, and just the fact that we've used those campaigns to then have wider conversations about full welfare and benefit checks through our Your Money team as well. I think it's massively helped with the residents that we've been able to secure additional income for, to have those conversations about, well, the council tax arrears and the rent arrears as well.
It was interesting, yeah. It was really interesting, that benchmarking piece with other lift clients. Yes, thank you for giving a shout out. Something that we like to do a lot of policy and practice. Just going back to the second part of the person's question, Paul, when you were talking to us about the resources and the different teams, any tips that you could share with other local authorities or other organisations on the call? How did you get everybody on board? How did you get all those different teams on board to doing the campaigns and using Lift?
Yeah, I think that the first thing is Lift enables us to deliver something using limited resources and using data as a driver for that, rather than making bulk outbound telephone conversations. We know exactly who to target. We're targeting people who perhaps there's barriers to engagement with. Sometimes you've got to use different messages. If you're doing discretionary housing payment payment contacts, sometimes the brown letter approach, the brown envelope approach doesn't work. Sometimes you've got to think outside the box with regard to that. We found email quite successful because it's immediate, and people, you know, in terms of our return rates of people reading it, and our hits on hits on contact, you know, it's worked quite well. But I think the financial results have been the key to sort of like getting everybody on board, because, you know, our staff see the impact on our residents. Well, most of us are East Riding residents, and you know, so it's a pretty easy sell, to be honest. But yeah, and what it has as well is, particularly with the discussions that we have with policy and praxis, when we can show them the drill down information, the heat map that Sam's just showcased there as well. It's information, it's in real time, because the data's sort of like transferred overnight. So it's real time information that we can act on. And if we have that information and we don't act on it, then I think we're failing our residents, to be fair.
Yeah, it's an interesting way. We've heard that said elsewhere, I think, by other lift clients too. Definitely, once you've got that knowledge, there's kind of that, yeah, there's, you know, there's definitely a will to act. Just sticking, Paul, if I may, a couple of people have asked about the execution. So somebody has said, was a leaflet approach considered to reach targeted households, as not everyone was on email? And then another person has asked, what do you do when you haven't got an email address? So is there anything you could explore with us about that?
Well, you can use a wide set of media, and sometimes email is more effective with people that, for example, are in receipt of universal credit, where the claims are online. If you're looking at pension credit campaigns, there's perhaps more proactive contact by, you know, where we don't have email addresses, we'll write to them. If we've got telephone numbers on our system, you know, we can send bulk texts out as well, inviting them to make contact with our Your Money team. You know, we're looking to use the lift to sort of like hold events in areas where there is that financial need for us to get in and help our residents as well. But what we've also done is, because we've got because we attend our financial inclusion strategy, we talk about what we're doing with people from the voluntary community sector, and they're also the people that have a better engagement with a lot of our residents, because they're local, because they're trusted, and because they're not a creditor as well. So it's about spreading that awareness. So yeah. So sometimes, unfortunately, you know, we look at campaigns, but the costs of postage are such that when you weigh the impact up, and when you weigh the impact up, sometimes of actually sending an envelope out with something formal from the council, when they're perhaps not opening the council tax bills and the council tax reminders, I think we do have to think a bit differently about that.
And interesting what you're saying, that I suppose what you've just talked about there, that digital exclusion thing, gets over that point. Anything about, do you at all, I mean, I know you talked to us about how broad a geographic area East Riding is. Anything about home visits, Paul? Is that anything that
we do? Through our Your Money team, we do home visits. Not as much as we used to do. I think COVID was a major turning point with regard to that. Not just because of the pandemic, but because of the outreach, really. We, as much as possible, with benefit advice, we use online calculators and entitlement calculators, and we're trying as much as possible triage that and try and help customers self-serve for sort of like the benefit entitlement advice. But we do have, you know, like every local authority, we have customers who, particularly with debt advice, we see them in our customer service centres, and if they have got needs, we all have customers who come with a plastic bag, sadly filled with bills, recovery notices, letters from the DWP, letters from utility companies. So there's always going to be that need for that greater assistance. So but as much as possible, we feel that we can reach out better, use telephones. We've tried Teams calls as well with customers. So limited success in relation to that as well.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a bit of a rest now, Paul, because I've fired so many questions at you. Let me just move on, if I may, quickly to yourself, Rachel. And if you could, there's been a few questions here just about the key or the common reasons for the lack of take-up. So if you could just talk to us a little bit about that.
Absolutely, happy to. There is a dearth of research around social policy and welfare take-up. However, we know that on the whole, it boils down to a handful of reasons. So one is awareness. The benefit system is complex. You know, it takes people like me and Paul working in Revs and Bends for the last, 30 years between us, and I'm sure we haven't covered the whole of the system. It's an extremely complex interplay of lots of different eligibility criteria, and expecting people to understand what they're entitled to. It's a very difficult proposition for a lot of people for a lot of reasons. So awareness. We can help with awareness by using data proactively. In terms of, we know through administrative data, as Paul's been telling us brilliantly all afternoon, in terms of we know who these people are, we know where people live, we have their contact details, we even know how much they're entitled to in a lot of cases. And so we can take that awareness away from them and we can go straight to them with information that they need. Stigma is the second reason. It can be a generational thing, and we do find that stigma is something that our older communities suffer from more than younger communities. However, it's the same everywhere. You know, we are, as a society, made to think around, you know, benefit claimants are work shy, or however, the majority of people in universal credit are in work. You know, so getting over these barriers through great communications policies with local government, with national government, with organisations like Policy and Practice, we can help to get rid of that stigma and shame. We've recently started to work with privacy as a concern. So some people, again, particularly the older community, are concerned that people will know that they are claiming benefits. And so we're using that and all of this knowledge to help our clients to tailor their campaigns by addressing some of these reasons why benefits are unclaimed. So we raise awareness by getting in touch with them. We address stigma by encouraging people to apply for benefits that they are entitled to. We pay into the system in order to take out of the system. And so it is their money, it's an entitlement, and we help to reduce stigma that way. And we help to reduce privacy concerns by addressing it head on. You know, nobody will know that you're claiming these benefits unless you choose to tell them. And we hope and we help our clients to tailor their campaigns based on these underclaimed benefit reasons that we know are nationally and effective. Now, Paul's addressed a really good one in terms of digital exclusion. We quite traditionally think of digital exclusion as an age-related problem. However, it's increasingly becoming an income-related problem. And we know that 95% of broadband social tariffs go unclaimed. You know, so some of the work that East Riding of Yorkshire doing and the rest of our clients are working to increase awareness around things like broadband social tariffs, because digital exclusion is more and more an economic issue and less an age issue. Obviously, as society grows older and we're growing up with technology now, it's bound to happen. So I would encourage use of digital methods like Paul's been talking about, and the gov.uk Notify is a fantastic service, really easy to use and free as well. And it cuts through junk barriers as well, because it's a .gov.uk email address and service. So as Paul mentioned, get on that if you're not doing it already as a local authority. So those are the main reasons, and that's how we're helping our clients to combat those reasons.
Brilliant, Rachel. Thank you, Paul. Is there anything that you would add to the reason Rachel has given in terms of that you've come across it in East Riding for lack of benefit take-up? Anything additional?
I think one of the problems that one of the problems that we have in the East Riding is we've got some, like, we've got a coastal town called Williamsea, which has got high levels of deprivation. But in order to sort of like go to see for the Department for Work and Pensions, people have got to go to Hull, and it takes an hour on a bus, and and I know that they've recently reduced, they've capped the bus fares, and long may that continue. But that's a real barrier for people seeing the DWP and claiming benefits. The rurality of the East Riding is a real problem in terms of access to services as well, and awareness of awareness. So as much as possible, I mean, we've used, you know, we've put leaflets on things like in libraries, in customer service centres, on mobile libraries, in terms of the East Riding's partnership with the NHS in terms of sort of like a health inclusion bus, working closely with, you know, we've put Your Money staff in food banks and in social supermarkets. So a lot of it's partnership working. We've used some of the funding that the East Riding has put aside to help with the cost of living crisis in terms of developing sort of like e-learning packages for VCSE staff as well, so that the first point of contact that people come into some of these centres, that they can speak to staff and volunteers who have at least had some training on dealing with benefit entitlement and helping with debt advice case before perhaps signposting them on to other people. So.
Brilliant, yeah, great stuff. That's really interesting, isn't it? Very kind of local issues as well as the nationwide issues Rachel's talked about. There's a man next to me who's got off quite lightly so far in terms of the Q&A, so I'm going to turn the questions, Sam, to you if I may, and I'm going to wrap a couple of questions together if that's all right. So there's been a few questions about how does Lift work, how does the Lift platform work, and basically somebody saying, do clients and residents have to sign up? Is there an opt-in and opt-out function to it? What about data share between the council and the Lift platform? So I think if you could just delve a little bit more into that, Sam. Quite a few questions.
That's a nice, easy question. So essentially, we, as part of your local authority signing up for Lift, we would sort of walk you through a DPIA process, so that we're sort of signed up to your data processing agreements and the impact assessments. We also do the data sharing with agreements with the DWP, which they sign off now in a few days generally, but we're able to again assist you with those, and with HMRC and things as well. And that allows you within the confines of the data that you're receiving, it's your data, but that you're getting from HMRC, you're getting from DWP. It allows you to share that with us for certain areas, which are things like benefit take-up campaigns, which also we run through Lift. We then combine that through Lift and through the policy engine, coming out to you back with the dashboards. But so to share it internally, we do get rid of all the personal identifiable information in there, so it can be shared across different departments within your organisation. It doesn't have to just sit within Rows and Bends. So hopefully that answers your question.
Anything, it does indeed, thank you. Anything about the different data sets that can be used to plug into Lift?
Yeah, so we take the SHEBI data, the single housing benefit extract. We take the UC data share, the CT scheme, and the arrears data for council tax, for HBA payments, and if you've got your own housing stock, your housing rent arrears as well. And then the information around your sort of DHB awards and stuff as well, and we fed in as well.
Did you mention the UC data share? Yeah. Sorry. Pay attention.
I'd add to that, we're increasingly seeing councils using EPC data, so energy performance certificate data to target households that are eligible for things like warm fund campaigns, or even things like retrofit, where we know highly rated, I was getting the wrong way around, highly rated EPC properties that are sort of poor energy performing properties, we're able to then bring that into lift and to help with energy schemes, as well as understanding people that might be more prone to having higher energy costs for things like proactive allocation of the household fund. There's a massive amount of overlap between those two issues.
Yeah, thank you. Great. Sorry, Paul, go on ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest unclaimed benefits facing us in local government is unfortunately it's right under our nose, because when we look at added value on things like enforcement agent contracts, we don't always maximise the added value, and certainly if you can look at sort of like match funding contributions from enforcement agents to pay for something which can have a massive impact on residents, can help in terms of boosting their income, reducing council tax arrears, giving them the opportunity to be able to afford some of the council tax arrears because you've helped with that income, and then reduce things like enforcement agent costs. That's something that that we're looking to do with our enforcement agent providers as well. So.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul. I'm mindful of time, and I did say I get everybody on their way by 15:15. So I'm going to just choose one last question. And Paul, it's one for you. If you could just wrap up. We've had a few questions that I'm going to put all into ones. It's basically about how do you track the impact of a campaign? So how do you know that what you're doing is working? You mentioned that financial circumstances of households are checked after 3 months. I mean, if you could just talk a little bit more about that to end on, tracking the success.
Yeah, it's not something that's immediate, that we're immediately able to do. So we work closely with PIP in terms of tracking the as was and the as is situation, which helps with that, and particularly with the campaigns that our Your Money team do. Our Your Money team leaders work quite closely to sort of like track 3 months, go back sort of like on they check the income that's been generated 3 months in advance with the status with what's on our Northgate NEC system, what's on our benefit system, what's on our council tax system, what's on our rent system as well. So there is a little bit of there's a little bit of administrative work around that. I could probably put together a more detailed response to how we do it and share it in the very near future if you want, because time probably won't permit today.
No, that would be really helpful, I think, Paul. Thank you. And then I think we could add to that as well. I know from other clients' point of view, we're talking about the fantastic return on investment that you've achieved at East Riding. So yeah, we could talk a little bit more about that for sure, definitely.
Yeah.
Let's wrap up then. I have promised to get everybody on the way, and I just want to say a huge thank you, Paul, for sharing all of the work in such detail East Riding of Yorkshire has done so far, because I know you talked to us about other stuff that you're doing as well, so it's just fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody on the call, in terms of the next step, we have got a very short survey at the end when the webinar finishes. I'd be ever so grateful if you could take just a couple of minutes just to give us your feedback, because we are always looking to improve our webinars, making sure that they are helpful to people. You can also request a follow-up call to chat to us further about Lift, and indeed talk more about the case study that we've heard about today and how that might be able to apply in your area, what your unclaimed benefits is in your area. I'm going to give a bit of a shout out for our next 2 webinars, if that's all right. So at the end of March, we're going to be talking about council tax support schemes from automation, banding, generosity and beyond. That sounds enticing, doesn't it? We're also going to be talking in April. We're going to be talking about another data-driven success story where we're talking about from homeless to uncovering unlocking income and recovering debts as well in another local authority. So yeah, do stick around for that. And in the survey, you'll be able to sign up for those webinars as well. But I just would like to end with a very sincere thank you, Paul, to yourself for taking us through all of your work so far. As Sam said earlier, we're just so delighted. We love to be able to showcase the success. So thank you for sharing your stories. And also thanks to my colleague Rachael Walker and Sam Fathers as well for giving up their time today and talking us through the webinar. Thank you everybody, and I hope to see you on another Policy and Practice webinar again very soon. Take care, have a good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye now.
Bye.